Welcome to the Think Fitness Life podcast, where the mind and gym come together to help you live your best life. Hosted by two fitness professionals and your personal trainers, Matt Gluckman and Eric Menchie. All right, we're back. And this week's topics, let's talk Z-axis, weight training, intermittent fasting. We have our weekly workout and our food for thought. And Menchie, let it rip with our weekly workout.
No equipment on the weekly workout. You're going to go to a field, everyone, or park, and you're going to sprint. So just think 30, 50, or 30 to 50 yard sprints. You can find a fence and walk 20 steps, 30 steps, put a marker there, put a piece of clothing there, and you're going to sprint, rest 30 seconds, and sprint 10 reps, just like that. If you have a football field or a soccer field, this is where it's going to get fun. After the 10-second sprints or this 10 sprints, you're going to run from end line to end line in a full sprint. You're going to walk across the field to the other end line. Once you get to the other end line, sprint end line to end line. So you're walking the width of the field. You're sprinting end line to end line, walk the width, and do that 4 times.
Gosh.
So 800 yards of total volume on that. Plus, if you're doing 40-yard sprints for 10 reps, 400 yards of volume. There's a probably 25, 30-minute sprint workout with a warm-up, and you're good to go.
Man, we used to do that in soccer preseason, except we would do walk, jog, sprint. And it was like you would you the longest length of the field you'd break up into 2 sections, and you would always walk one section, jog a section, and sprint a section. I always liked that scenario, but that even sounds better. Walk and sprint. Screw the jog.
You could,
But
if someone is beginning or intermediate and they want to build a more aerobic base, jog the length of the field, walk the width, jog the length, walk the width. It changes, just gives you something different to do, and then build up 50% speed, 75% speed, 100% speed. Work into that. We're now in a time where
I do like the just walk and sprint. Kind of building off of what we did a couple weeks ago, where you're building the aerobic base. Now you're really just doing peak performance. And I'll be honest and perfectly transparent. Like my first interval workout of the summer, my sprints turn into a jog after like 10-15 of them. So it's funny because you definitely do sort of build up that base of just trying to get better in that peak volume or that peak performance for volume. But like you said, if you want to start somewhere, maybe it's just a jog at first until you work your way up to the sprints, but just challenging your system, challenging that ceiling, so to speak. And that's a great weekly workout. Especially should be warmer out now for people.
Everyone should sprint, and not just on a bike or no, I don't even think treadmill counting sprint. Treadmill running counts as sprinting, but that's my opinion. Like, you got to get out to a field on the ground and sprint as hard as you can.
True. Or those dynamic treadmills, but the treadmill sprint is you're setting an arbitrary number and you're trying to match it, and it's not like a true sprint of your capacity. But the dynamic treadmills are where it's just kind of free running. But I think it was Jack LaLanne who said that sprinting is the best thing for your body, and he was like the forefather of modern gyms.
So it's so underrated. The health benefits. I don't want to go too much into sprinting, but the benefits from it. I mean, we've gone over in the past of we're talking mitochondrial health and longevity for repeated sprints. Aerobic is great. Don't get me wrong, but sprints, people need to be doing more of it. Challenge the system differently. And that workout builds it in. You have speed sprints with the shorter distance, and then you have more capacity with the longer, and you're challenging different systems of your body to just adapt and grow better.
If we still haven't convinced you to sprint, then well, I guess you probably don't want to listen to the rest of the episode. So let's get into Z axis and what we're talking about there, and how we want people to think about um, weight training and just exercise in general. Where we're going with the Z axis is talking about planes of motion. So typically, we have three planes of motion: sagittal, horizontal, frontal. And in a lot of modern gyms, we have a lot of fixed plane machinery. And it only requires you to control in one or two planes. And when it comes down to our system, our brain and our body trying to figure out where it is in space, is it uses its vestibular system, which is in our inner ear, and it has sort of three lines like a graph with little cups for helping to sense vibrations and calculate. It's a really fascinating system and really intricate. But so it quickly calculates your X, Y, and Z axis because we're 3D individuals and we live in a 3D world. So it's figuring out your sagittal, your horizontal, and frontal. When you are going right to machines or you go right to fixed motion exercises in general, you're forfeiting uh, that triplanar movement, and you're forfeiting a lot of what that Z axis that we're referring to is, which is really just stability and comes down to a lot of core engagement when you are forcing that triplanar movement. So I think the big thing that I wanted to bring up here is its importance for um, all of the other mechanisms and systems involved in controlling a weight or a piece of equipment, and you're getting less out of it. So people already have less time at the gym. Why are you doing something that's not going to be benefiting you most overall for your time? And it's something as simple as stepping away from the machines, stepping away from something like the Smith machine, and even just doing something with your body weight first, seeing if you can stabilize on the floor in a body weight squat. I think a lot of times this Z axis can be mistaken for people saying, "Oh, I just have bad balance." And I'm like, "Well, strength is stability. So if you can get stronger, you're going to have better balance in general. Don't just tell me, "Oh, I just have bad balance. I just have bad balance." No, it's just that you don't have the stability control because your body's not used to having to stabilize. It's just used to, "Oh, we're just moving things in one motion," and you're going to single layer your muscles involved and the muscle recruits that or muscles that get recruited.
Love the word balance. That is so key. And I'm glad you brought that up because I think people that's balance is part of physical fitness. You read books from back in the day, it'll have balance. It's kind of gone to the wayside right now because we don't really think of balance as like a physical component because it's just something we should innately have. Where we develop balance from basically the time we're born, our body's trying to figure out how to deal with gravity and acceleration, deceleration. And we're talking the Z axis, we're talking angular acceleration, not just linear, not just forward back. We're talking rotation side to side. And that's something that our body should be doing every single day. And we've taken that Z axis away each and every day. So, but first, hey, we walked everywhere. Awesome. Now we have, cars, vehicles. People don't do much walking. Other things we do. We were supposed to turn, heads turn, rotate, look. We don't look. Where we look, we look down at a screen most of the time, almost all the time.
Yeah.
We're not aware of situations. And those are all movements along the Z axis that will challenge and help the vestibular system figure out where it is. And the vestibular system drives the motor system. So if you have a system that's already dysregulated or not functioning 100% in the vestibular system, how am I, as a coach or trainer or someone, expected the motor system to be a step ahead of that, because it's going to rely on the feedback that the vestibular system, proprioception that you're getting. And that's very important because we do lock ourselves up. We sit too much. We do the things we like to do on when we get into the gym. Man, I love to go in. I love to
Mm.
squat. Don't get me wrong. Squat and deadlift, bilateral movements. I am good at them. I like to push forward and move stuff. And there's always something in the back of my head saying, okay, now I did a bilateral one. I have to go unilateral. I have to get
Mhm.
asymmetrical and train my body in an asymmetrical way.
Mhm.
And especially when it comes to resistance.
Even like single leg
Oh
style,
yeah,
like one leg at a time, controlling that Z axis, not just both legs together, right? Like you're gonna get more recruitment and more engagement if you just start to go one leg at a time in that Z axis or that triplanar.
because even though we don't have, so rotation's a component of the transverse Z axis plane, but standing on one leg is still working Z axis even though we're not rotating, because one side of our body is where stance on, the other side is doing the opposite. We have to control and center ourselves over that leg. It won't look like much, but internally we have to rotate to orient over to that side. And now we learn to stand on a single leg. Now we're talking z-axis control. And what is standing on
Yeah,
a single leg? All that is to me, it's part of walking. It's part of running. It's life. It's gait pattern.
yeah, and it's stability because in a walking and a movement pattern, you're requiring on or you're relying on that consistent movement pattern, and you only need that foot to be down for a moment before you're catching with the next foot and the next foot. They call it like a controlled falling. But I want to just back up real quick and make a point about, because Menchie was just talking about multiple different systems in the brain working together, and you're talking about different areas in the brain activating that now I've turned on to help your body get and receive the work that you're putting on it to then make adaptations and make progress. And a good point that I want to bring up about kind of the brain activity is, it was Albert Einstein who said, if you can kiss a girl while driving, you're obviously not putting enough attention to the kiss. And it's a good point, because it's like, if you can be on the treadmill, and it depends what you're trying to get done. A lot of people just can go steady state and get a good benefit and build up an aerobic base and just be reading a book or watching something. But a lot of the time, you see people even weight training sometimes with watching videos or listening to things or reading something, and they got one hand reading something and one hand curling. I saw that all the time back at Boston. And it's just like, okay, back that up for a second. If you can read something, if you can actively be engaged in something and watch something while you're physically doing something, are you really giving enough attention to that physicality that you're doing? Is that brain focused on and getting enough attention for your body to make any sort of changes for what stimulus you're putting on it? And another kind of key point what Mensch is talking about is like, okay, we used to walk a lot, now we drive a lot, now we sit a lot. So a lot of these systems kind of build up the cobwebs because they don't have to turn on. They aren't engaged as frequently, so they don't feel the need to waste energy at turning them on when there's other systems at play. It's the same way that your body will start to turn its core off and turn your lower back on when you sit for too long and your glutes start to turn off. So if you can uh, try to break out of that habit, you're going to keep diversifying the stimulus you're putting on your body, thus creating a better physical demand on the body and making changes and progress. So something like even a spin class, uh, you're not outside, you're not getting wind coming through you, you're not getting vitamin D, you're not getting the vestibular processing because you have to balance on an actual bike, you're not getting hills, you're not getting variability there. It's another fixed plane type of movement, and you're forfeiting, you are foregoing a lot of other systems that could be on, that could be benefiting you.
And we're not saying spinning's bad. We're just pointing
No,
out,
no, no, that's
and no, I,
right. And
I
I just want to
agreed.
thank you.
So it's not bad, but it can become problematic if that's your only modality, or you're going in 5 days a week and only doing linear acceleration or in place stuff where you're not wobbling, you're not letting the body move side to side and challenging the systems. That's where it becomes problematic. And most people should, or everyone should incorporate some sort of balance training. Now, that doesn't mean you have to go stand on a balance beam, but single leg stance, single leg isometrics, feel what it feels like to stand on one leg. That's how you're going to improve balance. Yes, you can get strong bilaterally, but you're not going to probably most likely improve your balance. And that's a big thing because as we age and we lose this, because we're not challenging ourselves enough, balance becomes a problem. So with things, you got to get
And
people to, from the top down, from the head, sense the floor, and the floor up to the brain. It has to be able to sense. And when we sense and stand on one leg, that's what we're talking about control. So this Z axis is very important.
And I do just want to say that again, you can interchange balance and strength in terms of this unilateral aspect. If you take that scenario of going from a deadlift to a single leg RDL, and you can improve on that, and you get stronger with that. Say that you did a body weight, then you can go to 10-pound dumbbells, then 20, then 30, and so on. That's great. You've built strength, but then next, remove that platform that you're trying to get stronger on. Make that the next area that you adjust and start to get stronger on from a hard surface to a soft surface to a Bosu ball. Now you're really truly incorporating strength and balance in a conjoined in a conjoined fashion. And um, one thing I want to mention, because I feel like I have kind of been bashing it, and I don't want to bash it. My point
Not a
is
problem.
that my point though would be, yes, there's a good, better, best scenario. I'm so happy that you're out and about moving and exercising in general, but there's something better you could be doing if you're just constantly on the spin bike all the time. If you just rode your bike to the gym and then got on the spin bike and did the spin class,
Right
boom,
there.
all those systems that we were talking about are online and activated, and you will be utilizing most of them when you're in that class. It's the same idea as muscle recruitment, and Brett Contreras has done this. Someone else, Elliot Hulse has proven this. That if you take like the squat for example, and take something like the Smith machine, which would cut out that Z axis or that triplanar movement.
Worst
Benji's
machine.
shaking his head.
Ugh. You want to
But
talk about
if you
locking a
say
system up? That machine will lock you up.
but here you go. I'm gonna make it good. If you took a dowel and you just did some simple dowel overhead squats outside the Smith machine, and then went into your Smith machine squats, you're gonna get much more muscle recruitment. You're gonna get vestibular processing. You're gonna get stability control. You're gonna kind of trick your body into thinking it's using that Z axis in its vestibular system without actually having a machine, or without actually having it do that.
Oh, see, I 100, and great you brought that up because I was going there next. I don't want to even say it's tricking the system. You're giving the system
Okay.
with the dial. You're giving the system proprioception and sense of, okay, now I have something overhead, and I'm not locked to anything. So the bike example, you could ride your bike.
But then I'm saying it's tricking it by going from the dowel to the Smith machine, like supersetting right from the dowel into the Smith machine to get the benefits of activating and then using it.
Oh,
Almost like PAPS,
gotcha.
just like
So
PAPS.
you're saying if you did the Smith machine to the other, it wouldn't be as beneficial.
So they've proven it even with like glute activation. They'll have like them do like a body weight glute
Mhm.
thing and then like a fixed plane glute movement, and uh they won't just single layer the muscle. They'll get full recruitment as if they had kept doing like a body weight under
Because
load.
okay, yeah, it makes sense. So it's like the riding the bike. Say you ride a bike 20 minutes to your workout, and then we're gonna go single leg deadlifts. You're already warmed up. You've been on a bike. Your I your strength or your balance is probably will be better than if you drove to the gym. Because on that bike, you were pedaling and you were wobbling side to side. You were incorporating rotation. You were turning on the bike to get to wherever you went. That right there is already going to tell the system, it's turned on. It has a sense. It's vestibular system spinning to keep you where it needs to be in space. Now you go stand on one leg. You're like, hey, I can feel the floor. I'm a little bit better. And it's the same concept with the overhead dowel and the squat. You're doing something systematically where multiple systems in recruitment in the body have to work to hold everything in place, glutes, femurs, whatever. And then you go on a fixed machine where it's more isolation, you're going to have that recruitment because you've already stimulated that neuromuscular system. And that's the important part of a lot of these things. Balance training doesn't have to be 40 minutes. I could have you stand on an Eric's pad with your eyes closed and just sense things around you and then put you on flat floor and have you do some exercises because your body's going to respond to the stimulus I previously put it in. And we're just changing perceptions, just changing patterns in the brain.
Yeah, and that's a key point, changing patterns in the brain there, because it brings up a funny point that if you knock a cup off your vestibular system, you're gonna have vertigo. You're gonna stand and just feel dizzy, like you're on a moving platform. So the way they get the brain to strengthen and recalculate better is with you're staring at a wall and you move your eyes around on the wall and you recalculate your vestibular system. But it's pretty fascinating. That was just a little tangent point. I think it's great that we talked about the aerobic side of the z-axis, but let's get into the weight training side with the z-axis and its importance there. So not only are you getting the brain recruited in different systems there, but you're also recruiting a lot of different muscles and stabilizers, as well as primary movers. But it's also the resistance that you're putting on your system, um, the loading that you're doing to your central nervous system, the synchronization of your neuromuscular firing. We could go on and on, and we could talk for a day straight explaining why weight training is so important. But let's talk specifically. Mention maybe you can help explain a little bit more of what is going on, kind of biomechanically when we are weight training.
When yeah, and we'll start there. When we're adding resistance, it can be body weight resistance, weights, dumbbells, benches, whatever, you name it. We're putting a stress on the system. And stress is good to the system, but the body has to adapt to that system. So when we're going through the ranges of motion, we have eccentric contraction, which is the lengthening, isometric, where it's muscles kind of stay in the same length. It's probably at the end point, and then you have the concentric, the shortening range of motion. All muscles have to go through those three motions to complete a cycle. And as we put ourselves through that, at the cellular level, we're talking muscle fibers are contracting. They're pulling together, they're separating, they're pulling together consistently. Now, when you add weight on top of that, it tells the body that maybe this is too much. So let's take a squat for a second. We'll do a body weight squat for 10 reps, which is great. A beginner at first will adapt to it because the body's like, hey, I'm lengthening and shortening really rapidly for many reps. I need to be able to build a little bit more fibers, so protein synthesis, for my system to handle this. Now you add resistance to it. You pick up a 30-pound kettlebell. Instead of being whatever weight you are, instead of being 195 pounds, I'm now adding 30 pounds to my total body weight. And now I'm moving that through space. And as we add resistance, the muscles have to adapt to be able to withstand and overcome that weight. If not, everyone's known this, especially if they bench press. If that weight's too heavy, that bar is not coming off your chest, and you hope someone's going to pull that bar off your chest. We have to get stronger. So progressively overloading increases the CNS system. So the fibers or the motor neurons firing, saying, hey, turn this muscle fiber on and stimulate and contract and push this. So the more stimulation of motor units we get, the more muscles we turn on, the more force and power we get. As those muscles will fatigue because of resistance, biomechanically, we're damaging proteins at the molecular level, and they have to build to get and withhold a stronger weight. It's the story of Milo and the bull.
My mind just blew up.
Um, but
wait, no, tell the
so
story.
Milo in the Bowl is man, it's an old story, but it's like the best.
Hold on, did you just pull this out of your
No,
ass,
look
or
it up.
did you prepare
Exercise
this?
physiology, like
Okay, all
101,
right.
back in the day.
Milo in the
Milo had
bowl. I'm
a
looking this
young
up.
bull, and he would carry it on his shoulders. And as the bull grows and got bigger, Milo got stronger, and he got bigger. And as it keeps going, the bull gets mature age. Milo gets bigger and stronger. Now he's lifting much more. All it is an example of progressive
Progressive
overload, and
overloading.
that's what we want in the
Yeah.
system.
Yep.
Muscles are great too, but also for bone and connective tissue. As we load bone, the bone gets stressed, and we kind of bend and no, we don't break, but we bend and kind of move the bones around, and that stimulates cells to say, "Hey, we need to grow more bone, healthier, thicker
And you can
bone."
improve bone density as well in people who risk
And
osteoporosis.
that is a huge thing, especially as we age. Muscle sarcopenia and osteoporosis sets in, so we lose muscle mass and bone density. So what's the biggest thing to prevent that? Lifting weight and having resistance. And this goes to balance, because we have to keep balance, because now we need balance, because if they fall and break a bone, that's not a good scenario. And usually that's a big cause of mortality, because people can't recover from that at older ages. So basically we're preventing that. Staying within the Z axis, we need to asymmetrically load, have resistance loaded on certain legs to create resist to create a adaptation to have the system be stronger.
And I just want to also mention one other thing, one other benefit that I can think of that Mensch didn't mention is muscle capillarization. And this is straight from Springer. This is an article on, I think it's on PubMed. Yeah. So this is just a little definition. Muscle capillarization is essential for the delivery of oxygen and nutrients to the exercising muscle, and thus capillarization is vital for exercise capacity. A high muscle capillary density means a large muscle to blood exchange, surface area, short oxygen diffusion distance, and high red blood cell transit time. And the reason why that's another benefit is because that happens the more that you load the muscle, the more that you use the muscle. It's just kind of like the more you use it, the stronger it gets. The more that you send blood to that area, the more capillaries, the more streams that are created to that muscle of more blood flow.
It is fascinating when we're talking about resistance training, and there's so many adaptations the body goes through. I mean, metabolic capillarization, which is in studies have shown resistance training is good, but capillarization, you're going to need high volume. So you can take a back squat and do 15 to 20 reps for a couple sets. Yeah, your legs aren't going to like that, but you're creating a demand of a system saying, hey, to do this, I need more blood. I need more oxygen. I need more energy substrates. How are you going to change so I can get all those? Or your buddy say, I'll give you more capillaries. Let's build those. And that kind of flows into the metabolic side when we're looking at health, because metabolism is kind of what runs everything in mitochondria. If we can
Mm,
improve
mm,
that
yep.
on that side, muscles will absorb more glycogen. They'll regulate insulin. They'll regulate glucose. They'll take up substrates they need to burn. Boom. Look at that. I mean, it's just there's so many. And the last one the big one I
And you're
have,
getting these systems to work and do their job rather than be stagnant,
right.
and nutrients go to waste or food go to waste in general.
So like the body's made to do this. It's made for activity to consistently like basically spin around and say, if you do this, I'll use that substrate. We'll clear this. We'll build more. That's all it is. And we'll just
And
move
you
it.
and you
We'll
and
keep
you mentioned it
ourselves strong.
earlier how and you mentioned earlier how in today's modern sort of physical demands of our everyday life, those systems just aren't challenged or even working.
And then if they
So
don't work, what do? Well, you put a car in the garage for 5 years. What's it going to look like if you don't touch it?
yeah, decay,
Yeah, it's going to be a little. It's going
rust,
to be bad.
oxidized.
And
Yeah,
that's what happens. So the last kind of big point I want to make with exercise is oxidation. I mean, we create and we're
or weight
living
training, weight specifically weight and resistance
resistance
training
training.
is what your
All right,
point. Right, right, right.
is the ability for our body to have this protection system around it, basically creating antioxidants as a natural defense to help our body grow and be protected. So we
Yep.
have bad cells in
Yep.
our body, we have good cells. It's up to the processes of cells to say, hey, we have to get rid of the bad. We got to clean them out. And Matt will talk about that in intermittent fasting. We got to clean these cells out, and we have to keep the good ones strong and healthy. And that's going through a process. So when we do weight train and resistance train, it helps build stronger cells, stronger DNA to go forward. And we're creating more of this antioxidant properties and producing more. And the one thing I did found is brain derived neurotropic factor increased
Oh, BDNF.
32% after a resistance training program. And I mean,
And
that
that
is
needs to be stated at Think Fitness Life, why it's so important for the brain, the mind, the BDNF from resistance
like,
training.
so
Love it.
saving this for last because the body's great, awesome, but we could keep the brain going because the brain runs everything. The brain is a miraculous organ that just is freaky
It
weird and just
if
it's
I
awesome.
if I short circuit the computer in your
Oh,
car won't
exactly.
run, baby.
So the fact that you can get an increase in this BDNF, I mean that's huge. So we're talking neuroplasticity, neural growth. We're talking about being better, and that's one thing that people need as we go through is continue to challenge this organ that's in our head to keep going because that thing runs too. It is metabolic, it functions, it controls the rest of the functions of the system. It signals things to go
Yep.
out, things come back, and it
Yep.
will adapt to it. So to keep a brain healthy, I mean, you can't go wrong with resistance training.
And a big reason why the brain gets signals sent to it is our stomach and the things that we eat. We have a vagus nerve that sends more signals up to the brain than it does down. So yes, this is our main computer, but what is sending signals to it? Actually, our mitochondria. Our mitochondria run the show, and we're really just big hosts for these single-celled organisms that have been around for the beginning of time, essentially. Um, so that being stated, we're going to get an intermittent fasting and it's important. And when it comes to nutrition in general, there are sort of three main kind of factors that you can mess around with, and it is nutrient quality, nutrient amount, like ratios, and timing. And a big one that people talk about, it's a big talked about topic, is intermittent fasting. It's almost a vilified term these days because people kind of are using it interchangeably. Intermittent fasting is a really broad topic of cycles between periods of eating and periods of fasting. Um, what a typical intermittent fast look like is a fast somewhere between 16 hours and up to 72 hours for a lot of the health benefits. And if you are simply um, going from a dinner, you say you stop eating at like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and instead of having breakfast at 10 o'clock, you have breakfast at 12. Yeah, you did sort of go through a fast there. There are a few little nuances that go into that because it takes your body anywhere from 4 to 8 hours to completely finish digesting, and when you sleep, you're um, utilizing a lot of blood to clean up a lot of inflammation in the body. And if you're digesting during that time, you're not getting the benefits. But that'll become later when we talk about eating windows again. Um, but a true fast again is going to be a longer period than just saying, "Oh, I'm intermittent fasting because I'm not eating at the same time I normally do." Not to say that that isn't going to give you benefits, but intermittent fasting is somewhere in the week. Throw in a 24-hour fast. Throw in a longer fast than you're used to. It shouldn't be um, something that requires the most amount of willpower to just starve yourself. It should be something that you've worked up to and you've gotten your body used to and adapted to uh, autophagy. Autophagy is your body's own cellular cleaning system. It's survival of the fittest at the cellular level. If from anywhere from 16 to 18 hours is typically when autophagy kicks in, and then it's really kicked into high gear after a 24-hour fast. But it's basically you, instead of giving your kids all these toys and just have them lying around the room, you say, hey guys, you're not getting any more toys until this stuff gets cleaned up. And it's not like your body knows that. Your body has no idea that it's going through this period. But it's like, oh my gosh, we might not be getting food for the longest time. We got to prepare for whatever, a famine, winter, a long trek, whatever it may be. And it's going to start to allot resources accordingly. Okay, you're a strong, healthy cell. We'll give you some resources. These cells over here, they're kind of sickly and dying. We're actually going to do what's called cell apoptosis, a constructed cell death, to not only get resources out of that cell, but free up resources that would be given to that cell and give it to a healthier, stronger cell. And what happens, anywhere from, I think this came out of MIT or somewhere out of Boston, anywhere from 18 to 24 is when stem cell production increases. That's your youngest, most pliable cells, newer cells that are coming on board. So when your body does get rid of, say, the cells around whatever it may be, whatever organ it may be, or muscle it may be, right? Could be a muscle tissue. It will have newer cells to start to develop and put in place of that. So you're actually reconstructing yourself from the inside out in a stronger fashion. So when you go through a period of an intermittent fast and you're only doing, 10 hours, 12 hours between meals, you're not getting a lot of health benefits that a true fast would give you. So an intermittent fasting is talking about periods of eating and periods of not eating, but more specifically in a longer fast pattern that isn't as consistent with, like, oh, I'm just gonna fast 24 hours one day a week. That's not intermittent fasting either. um, so by cycling, you're doing what a lot of bodybuilders do, and it's confusing to the body. It's diversifying the stimulus on the body, and it gets systems working and systems turning on and turning off. So for example, with the bodybuilding scenario, is they'll do like low carb days, high carb days, and the purpose is to stimulate the metabolism to burn everything between the skin and the muscle and help improve definition. But if they just ate the same carb ratio the whole time, it's like, how many times can you slice a piece of bread? And they're not going to see any improvements. But if they can increase their demand on their metabolism, and then the next day pull the rug out from underneath them, almost pull away the amount of carbs, well, the metabolism is working, skyrocketing, until it starts to realize the new carb level that's put in it before the metabolism drops. So that's the same thing that intermittent fasting does, is you go through periods of eating and firing on those metabolic processes, and then sort of pulling the intake out of the system, out of the equation, and just getting it to work with what's already on the system to make it that much more efficient. And that was a long-winded definition, but I think that pretty much sums it up.
You know what else it does? Fasting. Kind of the theme of today for me.
Oh, it also, because you're right. I'm not talking about. I'm talking broader,
I
but
know.
it does. Fasting does increase your human growth factor. It increases your NRF2 pathway, which is your antioxidant pathway. And when you go to eat again, you are skyrocketing this stuff that normally is working kind of mildly in the background, and your body is just like, oh man, give me the next meal. I can't wait to build up this system. I can't wait to strengthen these muscles. I can't wait to do all the things I need to do. And you're letting your body crave it. You're giving your body what it needs, you're letting it crave it. Giving your body what it needs, letting it crave it. And that's what intermittent fasting does. And for me specifically, I have a irritable bowel syndrome called ulcerative colitis. So my intermittent fasting looks like I'll randomly throw in anywhere from a 30 to a 48-hour fast somewhere in the week. And if it usually comes after like a big feast or a big meal the night before, because I really am full the next day, even until dinner time, just because I've gotten my body used to that. I've gotten my body used to when to release appetizers in its system and when to not. It's the same idea of, you have an amuse bouche or an appetizer as a way to get hungrier for the meal. And now you are, if you're someone who's used to 3 meals a day, 7 days a week for the last year, if you go to skip a meal, your body's going to be starving. It's not going to know what's going on, and it's going to require a lot of willpower to not eat. And we don't want it to be super difficult like that.
It will be. It can be though, but it's good, and it's just not. A lot of people look at intermittent fasting as an easy way to lose weight, and I'm not disagreeing because studies will show that it is a beneficial way to lose weight. But there's more benefits than that. Like you outlined with stem cells and uprating and downregulating regulating certain enzymes, certain genes in the body. I mean, I can rattle off a list here of things it does. One thing it does is inflammation, and to decrease inflammation, systemic inflammation by reducing oxidative stress. So we're looking at more than just, hey, we're cutting calories, and kind of rolling with the resistance training. This could be like a 1-2 punch. Increased activity in neurons, and especially in production of brain-derived neurotropic factors. Fasting promotes growth and maintenance of dendrites and synapses, and enhances production of survival of new neurons from neuronal stem cells. So we're also talking about brain health again too. It doesn't just have to be exercise. It's got to be both. It's diet, it's exercise. If we can do both, I mean, we're telling a system basically just to run efficiently and do things at different times that we need to. One day we're going to strength train and maybe have a little bit more calories in to maintain the muscle mass. That's good. But on other days where it might be, hey, we're going to have a lower aerobic day, we're going to do a fasting day today because I want these processes and these genes to upregulate in my body to just basically promote longevity, health, a bulletproof system that as we age, we know that there's increased hypertension, there's increased inflammation, especially with what we're dealing with dietary issues in this country, in this world. These things are high on the list of things that are taking us out. If we can curb that, boom, we have a better life. What do you like to say? Die at a right young age? Is that what's?
Oh, that was Dr. Gundry's. Dr. Gundry says, die young at a ripe old age.
That's what it is. Like, that's the end goal. And there's research on intermittent fasting and the benefits on cancers, and what Matt was saying of the apoptosis, like programming cell death. We need that in our body. And this is literally can be like on a computer, Control Alt Delete for certain cells that shouldn't be alive in our body. Get rid of them, clean them out, get cells and get good cells that are going to help health. And you put that together in a full system. All right, hey, we got sprints today. We got the Z-axis. We're moving in rotation. We're keeping our body flow. We're keeping balance. We got resistance training, and we got fasting. Man, really wasn't a brain day, but we're doing a lot for the neurological system and our brain to be top functioning and take care of us.
That's a great point to end on. And all I have to say is our food for thought this week that'll go in line with our fasting, that'll go in line with exercise selection and balance and strength, as well as weight training and resistance training. If it doesn't challenge you, it won't change you. And that's that. See you next week. Thanks for listening. We hope you gained something from this episode. Our mission is to help people live their best life, both physically and mentally. Check out thinkfitnesslife.com for additional resources and schedule a complimentary assessment with one of us. We're always here to help.